Thanks for sharing your garden with us. Now we're going to be learning about some tough ferns for Texas, many of them natives, and I'm joined by Patrick Kirwin. He's a garden designer and has Kirwin Horticultural Services down in San Marcos, Texas. And welcome to Central Texas Gardener, Patrick.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to have you here, and I love ferns in the garden. I think they add a really beautiful woodland touch, kind of cool down the garden spaces. But it surprises me how many are native to Texas.
We have quite a few that are native to Texas. We have over 100 species, and the majority of them will live in full sun and very drought-like conditions. So
yeah, completely unfern-like in terms of what I think of when I think of ferns.
Right. I mean, usually you kind of have the woodland, tropical, very lush thoughts when you think of ferns, but there's a lot of species that are actually desert ferns and grow out of rocks and little crevices and on the sides of the roads, and so they're very adaptable to many different areas of Texas.
Well, we're going to be introducing people to some of those species right now. When we talk about the way that you utilize ferns in the garden, I like seeing big sweeps of ferns. I mean, they make a nice accent plant. You can tuck one in here and there for that kind of textural quality that they usually offer. But how do you use them before we dive in and talk about the individual species?
Well, it depends on the species, but typically I like big drifts and kind of really amorphous shapes of drifts instead of, you know, your linear front of the flower bed kind of look. But if you kind of make nice big curvy sweeps out of them or kind of teardrop shapes, or and then kind of tuck them up under trees and shrubs so that it all kind of blends together, I think works really well. Yeah,
and I'm with you on that. I think that's a great way to use them. And you've brought some varieties that look like old friends and some that are completely foreign looking to, I'm sure, many of our viewers. The first one that we're going to be talking about is called autumn fern. And this one has a nice tight form, a really classic fern look. Tell me about the growing conditions for this.
Well, the autumn fern's a pretty tough fern. It likes a little bit of shade, and the new growth that comes out is kind of a light brown, almost a reddish brown.
Yeah, it's a little russet color,
Very russet, that's a good way to put it. And it needs a little bit of water, moderate amount of water, but it doesn't need to be, you know, soaked all the time. And then once it's established, they're fairly drought tolerant.
Now, I understand here in the Austin area that the autumn fern is actually evergreen.
Can be. Last year, you know, they were evergreen, and then they just kind of pushed out their new growth and didn't die back at all. I would think that when you get up around Waco, they would probably be deciduous.
You know, one of the things about ferns, and I don't know if the autumn fern is one of these, but often, even if they are kind of evergreen, I like to cut them to the ground just to get all the fiddleheads showing kind of as a display when they come out in the springtime. It's something that I don't know if you do that with your ferns or not, but
well, it depends on the species. The mother fern and the Lindheimer shield fern certainly could be cut back to the ground, and you could see them unfurl in the spring, which was pretty an awesome sight.
I think it's a beautiful sight in the garden. Well, right next to the autumn fern, you've brought another variety. This is one of these that really has a completely different look to it, and you can tell it's xeric right away just by looking at that foliage. And when you see the close-up on it, it is almost mind-blowing, that silver dusted look to it.
Yeah, and it's extremely hairy, which protects it against the sunlight. And the neat thing about these ferns, they kind of contract, and then once they're irrigated or they get rainfall, then they expand again. So you kind of know when to water them if you have them in a landscape situation. So it's kind of the canary in the coal mine kind of thing, where as they get brown and start to shrivel, you know to water, and then it's about a week or two before they actually need water again.
No real common name for this plant. We're just calling it sun-tough fern. Astrolepis is a botanical name.
Yes. The sun-tough fern came from a man named Lynn Lowry, who collected this fern and propagated it for Lone Star growers way back when. And
legendary Texas pioneer of plants.
Incredible man. And I think, Lone Star's morphed into another nursery now, and I don't know that they have them available, but so that's where the Sun Tough name came from. So
okay, so it was actually branded as such. Well, it's a beautiful little plant, and I intend to use this in the full sun, growing in gravel. You have a picture of it growing in your driveway.
It's in my driveway in Caliche, and it's full sun all day, and it's just really hot and rocky and
love that.
Kind of unpleasant. and it seems to be pretty happy there. So.
That's great. That's great. Now the next one, this to me looks like just classic southern wood fern.
Correct.
And this is, however, found right here in Travis County, growing on rocky slopes.
Rocky slopes. This fern, if given a little bit of water, is full sun tolerant. It's loves caliche. Can really thrive in a moist environment, and in a dry environment, it stays very petite. In a moist environment, of course, it
expands out as you would expect for the ferns. This is Lindheimer shield fern. And I tell you, this is an all-star. If it performs the way that you just described, this is like a perfect plant for Central Texas gardeners.
It's a great plant.
And I intend to try to get as much of this as I can, because I'm building some fern beds in my garden right now. So that sounds like just the plant for me. And again, it's Lindheimer shield fern. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, this is the most unusual looking of the things that you've brought along. And I've seen this before, and of course, one place that you can see it planted en masse is at the Dinosaur Garden in Zoka Botanical Gardens. This is, I've heard it called buffalo clover, but this is another form of fern that what's the common name that you're using for this?
Clover fern is a typical common name for that.
Okay. And again, you can see with the hairiness and the silver quality to it that this is a plant that's going to be pretty sun adapted.
Yes, and when it opens up, it kind of looks like a four-leaf clover, which is how it got its name. But this fern is an incredible ground cover. Given it can live in moisture, I mean, in a soggy, wet environment or a very dry environment. And it looks really good with big perennials coming out of the middle of it, or reseeding annuals just kind of popping up through it. So if you've got a really tough, hot spot that you need some ground cover, this will definitely do it for you.
Well, I love the look, and I wanted to pull this out. I know the camera guys might have a little difficulty with this, but this is you said four-leaf clover look, and there it is. So that's the look when it's open, and I think ours have closed down a little bit in the studio light here.
Yeah.
But absolutely wonderful looking little plant, and I love the notion of what you just talked about, of using it as kind of a carpet that other plants can emerge from. I can see this with sagos and cycads and things like that working really well together.
That would be great. I'm just, anything that's a little bit architectural will really get shown off by the kind of the green carpet effect.
Now, the plants we've mentioned thus far have all been native plants, and you've brought one exotic variety with you, and this is a really showy fern. This is called woodwartia, or mother fern. And where's this from?
This fern is from Asia. It's Woodwartia orientalis, and this is a pretty unique fern. This is the foliage, mature foliage. As the fiddleheads or croziers open up, it's very maroon, very brown. And the unique thing about this fern is that it has what are called buds on the top of the foliage, and
so they'll just drop off.
They'll just drop off and create new ferns.
That's great. Well, and it's a beautiful plant, really striking in terms of the scale of it and texturing of it. And I know that you've brought along a variety of books that we'll have information about on the website if people want to learn more about the ferns that are native to Texas and how they work.